Yes, while there has been a truce ceasefire into current hostilities announced between India and Pakistan, that announced at the weekend following 4 chaotic days of military clashes. Why this has been a concern for the world, because India and Pakistan are both nuclear armed powers. It's heightened the global concern around the conflict. But did not mean we did not see what is considered modern day forms of warfare, aircraft strikes, anti aircraft volleys. We had unmanned drone targeted attacks, weaponized drones used en masse for the first time in this particular territorial battle. But what is the underlying tension here? There is a great deal of religious nationalism remains strong in both India and Pakistan, but also no long term resolution in sight when it comes to the broader future of not just Indian Pakistan relations, but also around the very long as these two countries have been independent states, the dispute over the Kashmiri border. David Devadas is a journalist and author, has in fact written a book called The Generation of Rage in
Hello.
Kashmir. Good morning, David. Hope you're well.
Good morning.
Of course, the end to immediate hostilities between Pakistan and India announced over the week, and that, of course, is something positive to start this conversation with this morning.
Very welcome indeed. War is always to be avoided. And unfortunately, a lot of civilians lost their homes, some lost their lives, some had to be evacuated from their homes very near the line of control that divides the portions of Jammu and Kashmir that are controlled by India and by Pakistan, respectively. I am sitting in Kashmir right now and have seen the devastation in the lives of some of those who were victims of shelling over those 2 terrible days and nights around Karna and Poonch, and these are areas in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So, on a very human level, it was a great tragedy. Of course, war doesn't always solve things, and certainly this dispute between nuclear armed powers is very unlikely to be solved by war. It is clear that the US, in fact, President Trump is the one who announced the ceasefire, and many Indians are very unhappy about that, unhappy with their own government, that a foreign power, because this is a proud and ancient country that has gone through colonization and exploitation by great powers. And so there was some disgust and unhappiness over the fact that it was announced from there. But one way or the other, to me, it's a good thing that a ceasefire has come about.
The immediate cause of this last 4 days of violence is, of course, India claiming a Pakistani-backed terrorist attack on tourists on the Indian side of Kashmir. The Pakistani government denies it as any knowledge. But do we have to have this conversation that goes all the way back to 1947 with the splitting up of West Pakistan, now Pakistan, East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh, and Hindu India? Is that the overall cause of the ongoing ratcheting up of tension between India and Pakistan? And like any fault line, sometimes a fault line gives way, just released a little bit of pressure, and we do see some chaos.
Yes, indeed. This goes back to 1947 at least. In fact, some Indian historians talk about how the British encouraged Hindu-Muslim animosity from the late 19th century and at least from 1925 and then 1936 onwards. These are various dates that pertain to, I don't want to go into detail here, but it is a fact that the British created two of the greatest fault lines and conflicts in the world during that year 47-48, one in South Asia and the other in West Asia, that is when Palestine was divided into Israel and Palestine. And over the last year and a half, of course, we've seen how horribly that has played out in terms of the cost to human beings. But this conflict certainly has involved great powers, big powers, not only at the time of its inception. In fact, there's an excellent book by Chandrasekhar Dasgupta, which was published in 2002, and he has quoted from British cabinet memos and all kinds of records of the British Foreign Office and Prime Minister's Office and other ministerial offices about how they went about, in a sense, creating this conflict. And the US has played a role at various times. China has certainly been involved you see, the state of Jammu and Kashmir is huge, and it is by definition in the mountains, the Himalayas. And it includes some of the highest mountains in the world, which means, of course, that many of those areas are very sparsely populated. The most densely populated area, one of the most densely populated areas certainly, is the Kashmir Valley. And therefore, the whole dispute is called the Kashmir dispute. But large parts of this state have been under the control of China, not only India and Pakistan, but China too. And China now sees itself as a party too. But this has become extremely complicated. There are different ways to solve it, but unfortunately, no one looks at the people. And the fact is, this is perhaps the most sociologically diverse place on earth, even more than the Balkans, because it includes all kinds of people, all kinds of. Yes.
David, I watched a video at the weekend of an Indian TV reporter interviewing an young Indian man, and the TV reporter essentially directing the questioning on who do you support, India or Pakistan, and the young man quite honestly says, I support the people of India and Pakistan. I don't want to see people lose their lives because of a decades-long conflict, not necessarily in the hand of Pakistanis and Indians. And so on that very human angle, what is the appetite for Indians and Pakistanis to be engaged in an open hostility, but also in the geopolitical game where China has decided it's backing Pakistan, the United States says, well, we'll send our financial, military, intelligence support to India.
Well, the man you quoted is clearly a man after my own heart. I have great regard for a former Prime Minister of India who in 2004, this was Mr. Vajpayee, made peace with Pakistan. And within 4 months of that, he lost general elections very surprisingly. Even the opposition was utterly flabbergasted that it had won. I do believe that there were many forces in play. You see, peace and unity across South Asia, which is what he had achieved, between not only India and Pakistan, but also other neighbors such as Sri Lanka and Nepal and Bhutan and the Maldives and Bangladesh. He had also included Afghanistan in the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. I mean, all of them had together, and opened the way for Iran to be included. Now, this was something that a lot of great powers were absolutely unhappy with, to put it very mildly. And I feel really, really sad that we are not at this stage within sight of something like that, because so much anger has been built up over the last years and has become political fodder and political fuel, rather, for the politicians and armies, particularly the Pakistan army on that side, which dominates Pakistan, but also the political rulers today in India, there is a great deal of what you call religious nationalism. And this is something that some of us would like to see tempered at the very least. One of the very good things that happened on the Indian side during the last few days was that the Indian government put up a Muslim woman colonel of the Indian Army as the spokesperson to announce daily what was happening on the battlefields and how India was progressing. And the political class came together very strongly to back the government and to show national unity. That is something we very desperately need in different countries, but also across South Asia.
David Devadas, really appreciate your time and your insights. Journalist, author, also is the writer of a book called The Generation of Rage in Kashmir. It's a fascinating book, gives a very important outline of searching what's behind the Kashmiri conflict from 1931 and onwards.